Now let's move on to Best Actor in a Supporting Role. The nominees are Benicio del Toro for One Battle After Another, Jacob Elordi for Frankenstein, Delroy Lindo for Sinners, Sean Penn for One Battle After Another, and Stellan Skarsgård for Sentimental Value. From the very beginning, ever since we saw it at Cannes, I really thought that Stellan Skarsgård was the easy favorite in this category. I've thought so all season long. Only one thing has made me pause, and that's that Stellan Skarsgård lost the BAFTA.
That's pretty significant.
To Sean Penn. I'm not surprised. Obviously, Stellan Skarsgård wasn't nominated for the SAG, so there's no surprise there that he didn't win. Right. And of the nominees that were there at SAG, Sean Penn made the most sense.
Wait a minute. I'm not sure that I agree. I was always someone who thought that Benicio del Toro would win at the SAG.
No, I always thought you were wrong about that.
And I did not get any hints or suggestions that Sean Penn would be walking in as both the BAFTA winner and the SAG winner. That being said, I think, to go back to your point for just 1 second, the most important thing for Stellan Skarsgård's campaign is that he lost that BAFTA award. Right. And you have to ask why.
Right. Well, just to go back really quick to the SAG Awards for a second, if you look at the 5 actors that were nominated at SAG for Supporting Actor and you take out Miles Caden and you take out Paul Mescal, that leaves 3 actors, or you take out Jacob Elordi because Frankenstein was not, at that moment, didn't have the momentum that One Battle After Another has, you're left with 2 people. You're left with Benicio del Toro and Sean Penn at the SAG. And the reason why I always said Sean Penn has the advantage over Benicio is because it's a showier part. It's a much showier part, and that's what won. So that doesn't surprise me that Sean Penn won the SAG. The surprise is the BAFTA. That, the BAFTA would choose the showier part, which is Sean Penn, than, the more understated, nuanced, but, very familiar part that tends to win these awards in Supporting Actor. Stellan Skarsgård playing an aging father and filmmaker. It seems like it would be catnip in a way. He's great in the film. It's his first nomination in his mid-70s, which is crazy. He's acted internationally and domestically. So it just feels like everything was set in place for Stellan Skarsgård to receive his first Oscar. However, the tide turned with the BAFTA, right. And then it didn't help that the SAG was quickly followed with another win for Sean Penn.
The assumption was that if anyone was going to have Stellan Skarsgård back, it was going to be at BAFTA, where Sentimental Value did well, and where, in theory, an actor of his reputation, again, an international reputation, was going to have an edge. We probably underestimated the fact that Sean had yet to win
a BAFTA. Yeah, it was his first BAFTA.
Because he
I don't think enough people talk about that.
For Mystic River, and he did not win for Milk.
We should also point out that it was only Sean Penn's second SAG win as well.
Which I think actually makes the SAG possibly even more important, in my opinion. Because, fine, if we're going to excuse the Stellan Skarsgård loss to Sean Penn as Sean Penn has to win a BAFTA at some point, it's now or never. Okay, fine, that makes sense. But then when we go to the SAG, which happens after, and Sean Penn is able to win there again, and in this occasion, he was already a SAG winner for Milk, I do pause, because the question is, why do we have to rush to give Sean a second win before we give, for example, a second win to Benicio, who had a SAG win for Traffic in the lead role?
I do think that Sean Penn, again, in the acting community, is probably more, as much as I think that Benicio is one of our greats as well. I do think there's a reverence to Sean Penn that, is eclipsed only by a rare few amount of actors.
See, to me, I think that Benicio del Toro's reputation in the industry is neck and neck with Sean Penn's. I think, again, he's been in everything, in every type of role, in every type of genre, and I have no doubt that if you threw both names to a large amount of actors, they're going to bump heads as to which one is over the other. They're friends.
I don't know.
They're colleagues.
I don't know if I
work
see
together.
it that
way. I think that they would have issues saying who's better. I think Sean would say Benicio's better, and Benicio would say that Sean is better. And I think that again, I think that them working on this movie is no accident. They're friends.
Well, no, 100%, 100%. this Benicio has worked with Paul Thomas Anderson before, so absolutely. But I'm just saying that I do think, there's a small group of actors that, are just so revered that they can almost, in a way, kind of do no wrong. And I think that's just reserved for a very small group of actors, no matter how great an actor like Benicio del Toro is, which I 100% think he is one of our best actors ever. I just think that that's a group that's reserved for, that's just a place that's reserved for a very small group of actors. And I think that you see that because Sean Penn has these, has recently been in the news with his, tactics of going to Ukraine and giving away his Oscar and all of that, which for another actor would be, severely hurt their Oscar campaign. Doesn't really seem like this is registering at all as a problem for Sean Penn at all. Because again, I think he belongs to this very, very, very closed and specific and limited group of actors.
To me, I think that it makes sense why it isn't a problem at BAFTA, because him not having one surpasses that. To me, it calls my attention more why it isn't an issue at SAG. I think that's the more significant win. So the question is really, I think we both agree that unfortunately, the momentum has sort of left the Jacob Elordi campaign, and that can be shelved.
Well, I never really thought that there was that much momentum post the Critics' Choice win. I never really saw it as the contender to win this category. I think it's a little bit of a shame that, for example, Benicio del Toro, who's my favorite performance, one about after another, kind of has been sort of sidelined in these major precursors after being the critics' favorite. But again, it makes sense to me because Sean Penn has the showier part. Sean Penn has the showier role.
I mean, so if we shelve Jacob Elordi for Frankenstein, and we say that on paper there just is not enough support for Benicio del Toro in one bat after another, we do have to talk about one contender that Sean Penn has not really been able to beat because he's never really gone head to head with Sean Penn. And that's Sean Penn was able to win the SAG where Delroy Lindo was not present. And Sean Penn was able to win the BAFTA over Stellan Skarsgård, which was what we thought, who we thought was going to win. But certainly Delroy Lindo wasn't present there either. Now, you could make as much of an argument out of, well, he's never beaten Delroy Lindo as you could make out of, well, Delroy Lindo wasn't even strong enough to get nominated for either.
100%. And I think that's a very good point. I do think of this group, it's between those three actors, Sean Penn, Stellan Skarsgård, and Delroy Lindo. And in a way, if they were voting for who do I want to see on that stage, give a speech, give a acceptance speech, I think the winner would be Delroy Lindo. I think he's been a spokesperson for Sinners. Mm-hmm. I think there's a lot of respect for his career. You and I saw that nomination coming and really warned everybody, listen, get ready for a Delroy Lindo surprise, and that's exactly what happened. Mm-hmm. I think people are happy to see him have this moment, much like Stellan Skarsgård in a way, have this moment very late in his career. Possibly the Delroy Lindo in Sinners really hurts the Stellan Skarsgård in Sentimental Value because they're both a similar narrative of these veteran actors finally getting their attention in the spotlight, getting their flowers. And they're both in very well-liked films. So in a way, if you're attracted to that narrative, you're kind of pulled in two different directions. You could go Stellan Skarsgård, you could go Delroy Lindo.
What's so funny that I just thought of as you were saying that was just the idea that Delroy Lindo may be best known to some Academy members, at least some older ones, for his supporting role in The Side of House Rules in 1999. Oh, never mind. I was just thinking that Delroy Lindo had a very good supporting role in The Side of House Rules in 1999, and that Stellan Skarsgård had a really good supporting role in Good Will Hunting, but that wasn't 99. Right. That was 97. Right. I'm sorry, excuse me. I thought it was the same year, and I thought, oh my God, what are the odds?
Similar.
No, they're close, but no. Yeah, right. Keep going.
So I think that if they were voting for who they wanted to make a speech, they would vote for Delroy Lindo. But I think Delroy Lindo's biggest obstacle is, besides the fact that, again, he didn't get nominated for any of those watched precursors like the Globe, the SAG, or the BAFTA.
We need to talk about that.
I think his biggest obstacle is that I don't think the part is meaty enough in Sinners. I think he does a good job. He's a very good actor. But I think that, in terms of the cast and the ensemble, someone like Wunmi Mosaku stands out more. Some people would say, I think you and I would even say that Miles Caden stands out more than Delroy Lindo in his part.
Now, my question
I just
to
don't
you,
think I just don't think that it's as, again, meaty of a role. At some point we kind of lose him, and when we're in the throes of the spectacle of it all, we kind of lose sight of him a little bit. He kind of gets delegated to being sort of comedic relief, at some point. And so I don't think that it's as memorable as his performance in The Five Bloods. Right.
But
which was a starring role.
But I would like to just piggyback and get your thoughts on something in reference to what you just mentioned, which is it less meaty than Jamie Lee Curtis and Everything Everywhere All at Once? Is it less comic relief? Is there less appeal from one than the other?
No, I don't think. You're right. I don't see that big of a difference.
Is really the only thing that's separating them is just the idea that Jamie Lee Curtis was a Nepo baby, certainly, but also a SAG winner and a Globe nominee, I believe, or a BAFTA nominee. Globe nominee and BAFTA nominee. So just the idea that Jamie Lee Curtis's campaign was able to, get these details in and score those wins there.
And I also think there's something else too, which is, I think, unfortunately, not a lot of people talk about it, but I think I think it's easier as a white actor to sort of benefit from that kind of, campaign and narrative than it is to be a person of color to benefit the same, which is part of the injustice of it all.
Right. But so you agree that there isn't necessarily more meat in one part than
100%,
the other.
100% agree.
Right.
100% agree.
It's just where they stand sort of in the race, because I think my next
and maybe
question,
again in the industry also.
Right.
Being Jamie Curtis being who she is.
Well, I do think that Delroy Lindo has
but I guess I'm referring to the Nepo baby of it all.
Okay, yes. Yes. The sort of history of, her family. And I think that could be a factor as well.
Yeah.
What I was going to say in terms of breaking down the Delroy Lindo opportunity to win, again, you have this talent. The question is, can the campaign exploit that opportunity? I mean, Stellan Skarsgård, his campaign wasn't able to get up to the plate. They weren't able to win the BAFTA. Sean Penn, and we'll talk about this because you left it for last. We'll talk about it when we get there. This would be his third win, and that's a whole other thing to discuss. But for Delroy Lindo, what you're really looking at is, can someone who is not a Golden Globe nominee or a BAFTA nominee, or even a SAG nominee, can they go from surprising for that fifth spot at the Oscars to actually winning? I mean, do we even have any precedent for that?
Right. And I think it's also a good point. We'll go back to what you were saying. Sean Penn, this would be his third Oscar. But before that, I just want to say voters are voting based on the movies they're watching, but also based on the sort of precursors that they're, have their eye on and that they're watching or that they're hearing from, news that they're hearing about.
Watching the highlights.
Sean Penn never was able to get on stage and make a speech.
Right.
For one battle. He wasn't at the BAFTAs. He wasn't at the SAG. So in a way, I don't think that there was enough time to cement this longing to have Sean Penn be on the stage and give a speech, because I need to see him win for this, because I need to see him deliver a specific kind of speech or to have a specific kind of moment. Right. There was never a moment to sort of cement that, solidify that, because it never happened.
Right.
So really, the only thing actors have to go on when they're placing their vote is that it was the performance they most were drawn to.
Right.
They most liked.
Right.
And then back to what you were saying, that it would be his third Oscar. And as we all know, there's a very limited group of people who get 3 Oscars. That being said, again, as we were saying earlier in the conversation between Benicio del Toro and Sean Penn, I certainly believe Sean Penn is an actor that is going to get 3 Oscars, and that that the Academy wants to give him 3 Oscars. So in a way, it would make sense for this to be his third Oscar, his third and final Oscar. He's only getting up there in age. Again, it's a very, very showy part. It's something that they like to award, the antagonist, villainous, character.
Right.
So yeah, what do you think about that?
I mean, I think you touched upon a very important thing. If we're going to move from the Delroy Lindo factor into, or the Delroy Lindo contention into Sean Penn, our final contender to talk about for supporting actor, a historic third win would put him with Meryl Streep and Daniel Day-Lewis and Jack Nicholson. I think on the positive side, it would be a 2 wins for actor, Mystic River and Milk, and 1 win for supporting actor, which puts him alongside someone like Jack, who had One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, As Good as It Gets, and in terms of endearment, and not necessarily someone like Danny Day-Lewis or Frances McDormand, who they have it exclusively in lead. I like that. There's usually a lot more fanfare about it, right?
Yeah, there is.
And there's been some resistance to it too, right? So like there's fanfare for, is Meryl going to be able to do it? Is Danny Day-Lewis going to be able to do it? That's 2011, 2012. They did it back to back. But most recently, the most recent actor to do it was Frances McDormand. And there wasn't a lot of fanfare, and there was a lot of disbelief that it would even happen, right?
Right.
The sentiment and the momentum, a lot of the individuals who were aware of the race, what they thought was it was going to maybe possibly early be a Carey Mulligan win, but then it very much evolved into, this looks like the Viola Davis win finally for Best Actress, and it'll be her second Oscar. Let's do that before we get to a third win for Frances McDormand. BAFTA time comes around, and Frances wins for Nomadland. Nomadland is Best Picture favorite, and so that may have a lot to do with it. And that helps that One Battle After Another is a Best Picture favorite. But I almost felt like throughout the season, there was some resistance to it, right? By deciding not to give her the SAG, and not to give her the Golden Globe, and not to give her something like the Critics' Choice. And it was really only the BAFTA who felt like maybe they didn't have many more options, even though they could have gone to someone else if they really wanted to. And so I think there's even less fanfare for the Sean Penn third Oscar win. And as you said, he hasn't even gotten on stage, right?
Right.
So there's no knowing what's going to happen if he does win and he gets up there. If he's going to say, take it back. At the same time, as we said, these other places where he's winning, he's been behind, right? He's not, he wasn't even a one-time BAFTA winner yet.
Right.
And so I want to add a dimension to the conversation because maybe this is going to illustrate where you and I are going to go to at the end. 2 things that I want us to think about, 3 even. Number 1, anonymous ballots. Are they important? Are they relevant? Who knows? The name Stellan Skarsgård has shown up.
Yes.
Maybe more than we thought would.
I always thought that he was a big contender.
Right.
Just the BAFTA threw it off.
Right. But after the BAFTA and the SAG went to Sean, we thought, okay, well, maybe Sean is in the lead. But looking at some of these anonymous ballots, Stellan's name keeps popping up. Number 1. Number 2, Delroy Lindo, an unprecedented bid to win. The closest we came to comparison was Marcia Gay Harden for Pollock. And she was able to win. She was able to win without a Globe nomination, without a SAG nomination, without a BAFTA nomination, and she was able to win and beat Kate Hudson and Frances McDormand, both in the same movie, Almost Famous. Maybe there was a vote split there. Are we saying that Delroy Lindo can sort of, take that trajectory to a win? Sean Penn wins the SAG for One Battle After Another. At some point, we're going to have the conversation about if One Battle After Another is possibly as big a favorite as it appears to be in Best Picture, should it not have at least one acting win?
Yeah.
I want to add to that the idea that when Sean Penn wins the SAG for One Battle After Another, his second, it puts One Battle After Another in a very rare place because the times that 2 performances from the same movie have been nominated in a category at the Oscars as they were in the SAG, and they win a SAG, they tend to win an Oscar. And so, for example, Octavia Spencer for The Help, Jessica Chastain for The Help. 2 SAG nominees, 2 Oscar nominees. Octavia wins the SAG, Octavia wins the Oscar, right? Same category a few years before. Vera Farmiga up in the air, Anna Kendrick up in the air. 2 SAG nominees, 2 Oscar nominees. None of them win the SAG, none of them win the Oscar. Sam Rockwell, 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri in 2017, and Woody Harrelson, 3 Billboards. Sam Rockwell wins the SAG. Both of them Oscar nominees. Sam Rockwell wins the Oscar. So traditionally, when you have 2 performances from the same movie that are well liked enough to show up in a category at the SAG, and they're able to repeat that at the Oscars, and one of them won the SAG, historically, that should keep. And it makes, I think, Sean Penn the favorite to win here. I think the other thing to talk about beyond the SAG element there, in terms of, Sean being able to win the SAG when he and Benicio are both nominated for supporting actor for the same movie, if that weren't enough, I think you and I are sort of seeing a trajectory where one battle after another should pull out in the vicinity of 5 wins.
At least 5, yeah.
We're thinking that's where the trajectory is right now, especially with the way some of these techs have been falling recently. So taking that into account, if you kind of examine the situation with the hypothesis that, one battle is the best picture winner and it is nominated for 4 acting awards, right?
And it stands to win maybe at least 5 Oscar nominations.
And it stands
or
to
more.
win 5. Usually those films that can win those, 5
or more.
5 or more Oscars, they tend to usually carry at least 1 acting with them.
Yeah.
Right. And so this is a discussion that we've been having, which is if One Battle is really the best picture winner, does it really make a lot of sense for it to walk away without a single acting nomination?
Yeah, considering that it was nominated for 4.
Considering it's
and that
nominated
it
for 4.
won, several Oscars.
Exactly. And that it is a BAFTA winning, it won a BAFTA for one of its performances and a SAG for one of its performances to boot. I think it just lends to this idea that the way Best Supporting Actor stands and what Sean has been able to pick up, or the way Best Actor stands and the way that it's anyone's ballgame, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes, it seems very likely to us that one bat after another wins an acting award.
Right.
If you look at the stats, it seems like supporting actor would be it. And we'll expand a little bit more, I think, on this as we talk about Best Picture. But as you watch the ceremony, if you see One Battle not pick up any of the acting awards, it could be a red flag, potentially.
Right.
But right now, if you look at the stat we had about Sean winning the SAG with another film of his being in there, obviously it was a really well-liked film at the SAG because it broke records, even if it lost ensemble cast. But also the idea that right now, One Battle After Another seems to be the frontrunner for Best Picture. It needs to pick up an acting award.
It should.
It should. Leo, maybe not the most showy performance in a night that was absolutely electric when Michael B. Jordan won the SAG for Sinners, and when Timothée Chalamet is on paper still the favorite for Marty Supreme. Tiana Taylor might, be
The obstacle.
sidelined in favor for
someone like Amy Madigan or Wunmi
Mosaku or Amy Madigan. Sean has both a BAFTA and a SAG, and that seems like it could be something that could be the final nail in the coffin for where this race is going to go. I will say, as a caveat, we did some digging and we did find a few scenarios, not many.
I will say before that the last time a film won Best Picture and more than 5 Oscars and was nominated for an acting award and it didn't win that acting award was The Hurt Locker, which won 6 Oscars. And Jeremy Renner obviously didn't win. However, that was the film's only acting nomination.
Right.
Which is different here because it has 4 acting nominations.
The odds weren't necessarily very high that Hurt Locker would walk away with an acting nomination when it only got 1. Basically, its only shot to win an acting was Jeremy Renner.
Right.
And it's one of the few instances, and maybe the last instance, the latest
the last
time that a film walked away with more than 5 Oscars but failed to pick up acting. I will say also Hurt Locker picking up picture, director, and screenplay. So I won a lot of the important ones, which is what I think One Battle is going to try to do. But I think it's in perfect position to pick up an acting award. As you said, its chances are way better. It's got 4 nominations, right? But the other thing I was going to say, we did some digging. And in terms of, performances that have won at both SAG and BAFTA and failed to translate or convert that into an Oscar win, they're very few, but they do exist. And so we found a year where even 2 existed at the same time. 2002, Danny DeLewis was a SAG winner and a BAFTA winner for Gangs of New York, loses the Oscar to Adrian Brody because they were resistant to give him a second Oscar possibly. Gangs of New York wins nothing that year. Christopher Walken for
Catch Me If You Can.
That same year was a SAG winner for supporting actor, and he was a BAFTA winner for supporting actor. Come Oscar time, they end up giving the award to Chris Cooper, who was the Golden Globe winner, much like Stellan Skarsgård, the Golden Globe winner this year. That being said, I will say it was also Christopher Walken's second Oscar, right? He previously won for The Deer Hunter, but he was by himself, essentially. It was himself and I think a score nomination. There was no more, fanfare amongst actors for his win. Same thing with Gangs of New York. If you look at it, I mean, it was just Daniel Day-Lewis on the acting side.
Right.
One Battle After Another has the detriment of it being Sean's third win instead of being like Daniel's second or Christopher Walken's second. Can we really give Sean a third already? But on the plus side, One Battle After Another is very much an actor's movie. It is not like Gangs of New York with the one acting nomination or Catch Me If You Can, like the one acting nomination.
Right, 100%.
Other scenarios, for example, included Russell Crowe for A Beautiful Mind was a SAG winner and a BAFTA winner, but obviously he's coming off a win
for
so
Gladiator.
They really wanted to resist the idea of giving him another Oscar. Back-to-back Oscars. Again, his second. And then I think there was one more instance, I believe, but just that idea that it has happened before. I wished it was Annette Bening. That's right, for American Beauty.
Who won the BAFTA and the SAG for American Beauty.
And it was going to be her first one. She lost to Golden Globe winner Hilary Swank, who was playing a real life character. So all this to say, it seems like between the SAG stat that we were saying, the combination of the SAG BAFTA. And One Battle being very much an actor's movie and a Best Picture frontrunner.
In position to win several Oscars, more than 5, possibly.
Exactly. And in a position, in a trajectory to win 5 Oscars or more, it seems like
it should have an acting win.
Yeah, the smart money would be to put an acting win behind it. And if that's the case, I think we're seeing the race break for Sean Penn.
Yeah, 100%. Right? I agree 100%. I really think you have to watch out for Delroy Lindo in Sinners and Stellan Skarsgård for Sentimental Value. You had said earlier that you were really scared about one category and really unsure. This is the category that I'm most unsure about.
Right.
And that I think has a big potential of surprising a lot of people and hurting your Oscar pool.
Yeah.
This is the category. Oddly enough, because supporting actor is usually the most boring category.
Right.
Everyone knows who's going to win from the very beginning.
Right.
I think that the SAG and the BAFTA really did a lot to, fuck things up.
A lot, yeah. Yeah.
And so I think that, I'll be very curious to see who wins this.
And a lot of things can go wrong, by the way. So Delroy Lindo could end up winning this and screw out the Wunmi Mosaku win for supporting actress, or they can double up or possibly even triple up if Michael B. Jordan can make that actor happen, in which case it's very bad news for One Battle's hopes of winning Best Picture. Stellan Skarsgård could win this, which I think is really bad news for Sentimental Value's chances of winning foreign film. And then, again, I think that if the night goes on and we don't see One Battle pull out an acting win, I think you're in murky ground.
Right.
So this category, I
think you said the last time that a film won Best Picture and was nominated for 4 actings and didn't win any of the 4 actings was Rocky.
Yeah, I think it's just so tied together. So in terms of Best Picture, the last film to win Best Picture and be nominated for 4 acting awards, that's a feat. That's not very common for acting awards. The last film to do it and win was and win one of those acting awards was Terms of Endearment, which had double nominations in actress and double nominations in supporting actor, and was able to win for Shirley MacLaine and for Jack Nicholson, along with Best Picture. And that's 1983, I believe. And then before that, last time a Best Picture winner had 4 actors up for an award and failed to win any of them was Rocky, when Sly Stallone, Talia Shire, Burt Young, Burgess Meredith, they were all nominated for acting awards. Rocky didn't win any of them, but it still won Best Picture, Best Director. I believe that's 1976. Those are the last occasions where a Best Picture winner had 4 actors up for nominations, right? In one situation, they won 2 of the 4, and in another situation, they won 0 of the 4.
Right.
Which one is One Battle going to be? Is it going to win 0 of the 4? Is it going to win at least 1? Could it potentially win more than 1? We'll see what happens.
Yeah. It's a very, very, very interesting race. The most exciting supporting actor race in ages.
Right.
So we're going to go with our pick being for the win, Sean Penn for One Battle After Another. And I think that the spoiler is going to be Stellan Skarsgård for Sentimental Value.
I would have to agree. I think that Stellan Skarsgård is the one that I feel most uncomfortable leaving off. But again, I think that Stellan Skarsgård win really creates an opening for Jafar Panahi to win international film.
Right.
So we'll see
what
what
also,
happens.
I wouldn't count out Delroy Lindo for Sinners either.
No, but again, can you imagine if this year, we have a Marcia Gay Harden level win? Again, Marcia Gay Harden for Pollock playing a real life character, by the way.
Right.
You know,
That matters.
it's not like the role that Jamie Lee Curtis has in Everything Everywhere All at Once. You know, it's the only time that I can remember someone winning without a nomination at a Globe, at a SAG, at a BAFTA. You know.
Well, let me ask you one quick question before we move on for supporting actor. Maybe some of our listeners might be wondering, what about what we had said about how, you know, in terms of endorsement and, you know, brandishing a win with an endorsement, and we were saying Tana Taylor, they'll probably look elsewhere for supporting actress, but for supporting actor, the villain, the antagonist of Sean Penn, we're positioning for a win.
Right.
What are your thoughts about that?
I think what helps the Sean Penn win more than the Perfidia win is, like the Monique character, it's a little bit more black and white, right?
Yeah.
Versus the gray that is Perfidia.
Mm-hmm.
And I also, what I like about the Sean Penn character is that there is a lot of fun that you're poking at the character. I mean, I think Paul Thomas Anderson humanizes the individual immensely, but certainly doesn't keep from laughing at him, right? And, you know, making him the butt of the joke. And these are things that I think Sean Penn really, I think, excels at. It's certainly the comedy of the performance. It's unlike any of the performances that he's won before, which I think really helps.
Right.
But also in humanizing the character.
Yeah.
And so I think that it's an easier quote unquote endorsement. Lockjaw is the antagonist for the film. Can you have sympathy for the antagonist? Absolutely. I think you can have sympathy for Monique's character at the end of Precious. That being said, what I think the Academy likes is a clean sort of divide and a very clean framing of this is where the film stands on this character, as opposed to, again, I think Perfidia lives in that gray
area. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
100%. I agree 100%. I just wanted to pose that question because I think some listeners might be wondering, wait a minute.
It's an excellent question. If you've been enjoying the Academy Anonymous podcast and want to support the work we're doing, there's a voluntary support link in the show notes. Totally optional. Just a way to help us keep the podcast going. Thank you for listening.
The music on this episode, entitled Cool Cats, was graciously provided by Kevin MacLeod and Incompetech.com. Licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0. http://creativecommons.org/licenses/by/3.0.
Disclaimer. The Academy Anonymous podcast is in no way affiliated or endorsed by the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences.